Movies move us. I've already done a whole little video on this. You should check it out if you haven't already. There are films that inspire us, films that create social change. Our next guest is the Oscar-winning producer of The Cove, Olivia Ahnemann. The Cove examines and looks into Japan's industry of hunting dolphins. And due to her work and her team's work, there was changes. Guys, this is Film Nation with Olivia Ahnemann. All right, guys, welcome back to another class. Today we have a very special guest I'm honored to share with you. Olivia Ahnemann is the co-producer of the 2010 Oscar-winning documentary, The Cove. The Cove would go on to win the Writers Guild, the Producers Guild, National Board of Review, and a gazillion other awards as well, because it was just an amazing film. She followed that up with Racing Extinction, which was nominated also for an Oscar for Best Original Song. So that's a fun little bit of a difference coming in. And she followed that up with another documentary called Under the Gun, which is a powerful examination of the Sandy Hook massacre. She just released her newest film this past November, Youth v. Gov. Her work has been seen on National Geographic, Discovery, A&E, Travel Channel. Olivia Ahnemann, welcome to our class, and thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Brad. It's a pleasure being here. Thanks for having me.
Well, we're very excited. The documentary film category has seen a lot of success in the last decade from women. 2 of the last 10 films were directed or co-directed by women. 6 of the 10 winning films were produced or co-produced by women. With narrative films struggling to recognize female filmmakers, what makes a documentary category such a strong showcase for female filmmakers?
Gosh, that's such a good question. I think women are natural storytellers. I think women are great listeners. I'm not saying that men aren't either of those things either, but I feel like there's a fit of looking out into your community and to those around you and connecting with the potential of stories that are there and the human connection that is often brought forward in documentary filmmaking. I think a lot of women maybe are attracted to storytelling in that way. I can speak for myself. I don't want to speak for all
Right.
female documentary storytellers, but I know that's one thing that for me I really feel connected with in my work and feel honored in all of the circumstances to be invited into people's lives and to hear their expertise and their stories and what's going on in their communities and the issues they're facing. I find that to be a really compelling part of what I do and what continues to draw me into storytelling in this format. I also think I'm a producer, I'm not a director, but I think women are very good at balancing a lot of things and multitasking, and the role of a producer is very you have to have a lot of balls in the air, and a lot of times it's a lot of relationship building with your team, with funders of your films, with distributors, with characters, and I think again, for me, that's a natural part of what I do and who I am, and I enjoy that part of the job. So maybe those are some of the things that draw women. And I think also the documentary community itself has really over time embraced women and sort of propped women up. It's a continuing struggle, but there's been some recognition, as there is currently in the documentary world around BIPOC storytellers, is really finding ways in our community to make sure that a diversity of voices are heard and an authenticity around the stories are being told. So that, I think, contributes to that as well.
I mean, you've brought up a lot of great points in just this quick of an answer. You know, when you look at narrative films, I mean, especially last year, there were some really high quality movies that were directed by women that were shunned by, you know, by award seasons and things of that sort. And the fact that you're pointing out that this genre of filmmaking, the documentary, has come to embrace this diversity has been so key. So, so then would you say it's the, and I'm not meaning this as an overgeneralization, but just that the fact that a lot of female filmmakers have to actually intervene into somebody's life. They have to really get personal with their subject matter. So that ability to have and show compassion is maybe one of the reasons then that it's such a strong female platform.
I think so. I mean, my male filmmaking colleagues have to do the same things
Right.
to tell stories well too. But yes, in documentary filmmaking, you do have to have a very strong connection with the people that are allowing you to tell their story, that are trusting you. There's a big trust component of what we do. It's very invasive for a film crew to come into your house, into your life, and for you as the subject to feel that there's a place of safety and trust to share your life, if that's what the film, you know, is diving into. And most documentaries in some way are getting fairly, you know, in depth with a character or set of characters, and perhaps women have an approach that creates that space for people. Yeah.
Okay. The cool thing about the documentary film is that we're seeing what is being labeled as the golden age of documentary filmmaking. Journalist Clayton Davis just last month argued with over 240 films eligible this year for the Oscars that maybe the Oscars should even expand the category from 5 film nominations to 10. Why do you think in this last decade, we've seen such an amazing renaissance in a documentary film?
Yeah, there are a couple things that are good to discuss here. One is this, you know, I will say perceived golden age of documentary filmmaking. And I say that in a way is that I think that people still working in the documentary field, there have been some recent career sustainability studies that have come out by a woman named Rebecca Green, who writes a newsletter called Dear Producers. It's really for sort of more narrative film. But then the Documentary Producers Alliance has also did a study within its members of 400 people that filmmakers themselves struggle to make a livable wage, you know, doing what we do. So Netflix might be paying, you know, what, $15 million for Summer of Soul, but those are the rare films that are box office hits or getting those huge deals from streaming platforms. Boys State last year, I think, brought in $12 million at a sale at Sundance. But as you said, there's something like 240 films that were eligible for Oscar consideration this year. And I would guarantee that not all of those 240 films have been profit-making, you know, documentaries. So there's that side of it is, but as far as from like a storytelling platform, and I agree with you, the documentary format is in this over the last decade or so has really been embraced. And I think that's my take on that. And this isn't a scholarly opinion, but I look at where news has gone and where we used to digest in-depth stories. News used to do that for us. They used to take things that were happening around the world in real life and in real time and dedicate proper storytelling time to that. That's changed. I see news has become more of an entertainment area. It's become polarized on where you get your news. And I feel like the documentary format, either in short form or in long form, gives people the time and the space to unpack stories and to really dive into subject matters in a much deeper way, something that you can tell in 30 minutes or an hour and a half versus in a 2-minute excerpt on a network program. And then the other part of that, I would say the rise in subscription-based streaming platforms where there aren't commercial breaks, and there's if subscribers are signing up to Netflix and Hulu and Apple Plus, those platforms have the ability to show longer stories. So it's probably, I'm sure there are many other layers in it to there, but those are my sort of 2 takes on it.
So would you think in the streaming platforms, just because, they're wanting to build their library, so an audience has a bigger selection, documentaries are sort of cheaper to purchase for them, and thus they're just getting more exposure because more people are having streaming platforms? You think then that's a speculative reason?
Yeah, that's probably one part of it. Certainly. And I would also say that I think documentary filmmaking has changed in, you look at a film like The Cove,
right,
which at the time was really kind of groundbreaking in its approach to how it uncovered what was going on in Taiji, Japan with this annual dolphin drive. I think people maybe of my age used to think that documentaries, you'd sit down and you watch a science show and it's a bunch of talking heads, a scientist saying this and another, and an expert saying that, and it was covered with a few. It was drier, and I think filmmakers have gotten a lot more innovative in the way that they go out and approach, gathering footage and telling stories. Oftentimes they'll insert themselves in it. They're taking risks that I don't think documentary filmmakers did, 15 years ago. And the other part of it is through like advancements in technology and everybody having an iPhone and cameras being less expensive and editing equipment coming installed on everybody's home computers, the access to more people being able to go out and film and collect stories in their own backyards and their own communities has become much more accessible for more people. And I think that's probably one of the reasons that you're seeing more people embracing documentaries or being intrigued by them. It's really exciting as a filmmaker to.
It is, and I grew up in a time frame where my high school days were in the 80s, and our documentaries for classes was a reel-to-reel, usually a science teacher or a history teacher, doing like the life of the carpenter ant, and it was, it was a very dry production, and it was like, all right, sweet movie day, I can go to sleep in class because it's life of the carpenter ant. So, but you mentioned Cove, and the Cove is a very powerful film, a wonderful film. You did do some groundbreaking techniques because it was like a thrill kind of minute, because you had your crew hiding some cameras to bring the world to light of what was happening in Japan with the massacre of 20,000 plus dolphins and porpoises a year, and where the younger mammals were captured to be sent to sea worlds and such of that kind of stuff, and the rest were used for food. And it was a it is powerful and hurtful and shocking and very much creates an awareness of it. Your film did receive some criticism because there was going to be some people who said it was saying a negative propaganda that the Japanese people didn't have the ability to counter that argument. How did you determine what part of the story you're going to share with that movie, and how did you handle those criticisms when they first approached?
Well, the filmmaker Louis Sahoyas, the director of the film, was really the driving force behind the capturing that story and all of the, innovative approaches of bringing free divers to place cameras in at the bottom of the cove, or to get fake rocks manufactured, created, to put cameras in and place them in areas of the cove, to really uncover that. And through meeting Rick O'Barry, who's the main character in the film and the main protagonist, who had been going to Taiji over the years to try to bring the world's attention to what was going on there. The story followed Rick,
Right.
and it followed his efforts to bring this to light. And so you are looking, we chose as filmmakers to follow Rick and to look at that side of what was going on. So all filmmakers, and at some point, make a decision of how they're going to approach the subject.
Right.
And I don't think the Japanese officials, some officials in Taiji did speak on camera and agree to be part of the film. And we did get some interviews with some of the authorities on the whaling industry in Japan, but that wasn't where Louis wanted to tell the story. It wasn't, we got those voices and we got some input from those people in Taiji and Japanese whaling, but the focus of the story was on Rick and really trying to his efforts of showing what was going on in Taiji. So as a filmmaker, you make choices on how you're going to present and show your story, and not every story needs to be or is a perfect presentation of both sides of the story. You need to be factual about what you're presenting, but documentaries aren't always even to each side. And there was criticism, and I think there's a lot of criticism in all films, like where do we as American filmmakers shine a light on a Japanese cultural or economic traditional way of hunting and the commercial well-being of a town in Japan. Like, what's our right as non-Japanese filmmakers come in and tell that story? I think that's a debate that's ongoing in all communities. Like, who should be telling these stories of?
Well, I mean, it's a very powerful story, and the focus being on Rick and following him through it, and you see his passion, and it almost, I almost felt like he, in essence, becomes like Dr. Frankenstein, where he feels like he's created this monster that he somewhat feels responsible for, and it is a haunting experience for him, and he's now trying to correct, but he's still haunted by this ghost that he helped create. And it is an emotionally moving film, and it's a very powerful film. I hope my guys get a chance to see it. It's not easily found on the streaming platforms right now.
No, it's not. And I could do a little bit. You can look for it online. There are some copies of it online where I think you can watch it even for free now. So I encourage you students to go out and look for it because it really is an interesting film. And just to Chad, in case people don't know, Rick O'Berry was the trainer who trained the dolphins that were in the TV program Flipper. So he worked with captive marine mammals for most of his career, and that's what you're referring to as him feeling partly responsible for that fascination we have with dolphins and dolphins in captivity. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and it does bring a light because it's something I had not even you just appreciate it, but then you realize, oh wow, there's a consequence to this appreciation.
Yeah.
Now, the films that you make shoot a lot of hours. For example, Racing Extinction, you had over 1,200 hours of film. Yeah, and you have to narrow it down to 90 minutes. How does your team collectively say, this is the story we want to tell and cut all from 1,200 hours to just 90 minutes?
Yeah, and I'd say too that in those, you have 1,200 hours of original footage, but you also have graphics, you have stock footage and archival material and things. So your film is made up of a bunch of different elements. The original footage you shoot in the field, plus these other visual elements, and so it's. Before you go out and film, in a lot of cases, you're writing story treatments of how you think the story is going to unfold. But again, with documentary filmmaking, you never know. You're following real subjects in real time and things shift and change. But you hire very skilled and creative editors and writers to help shape the story. The director will have a vision of where he or she wants the story to go, but all films are a very collaborative process, and it takes the skill of editors. Like on Racing Extinction, we had 2 assistant editors whose jobs would be sifting through the material, queuing up the really good shots and scenes for our editing, our sort of lead editing team. And on that film, I think we had 3 lead editors. Jeffrey Richmond, very talented documentary editor. Lyman Smith, who is also a very talented doc editor. And forgive me, I'm forgetting who our 3rd editor is. I'm sorry. But you take, so their skills plus a writer. On Racing Extinction and the Cove, we had Mark Monroe, who's a fantastic writer. And Mark has the ability to just like get into like really the essence of the story and to help craft how all that footage should come together. So between the 3 elements of the director, the editors, and the writing, that team, the story is crafted. And then you have the producing team who evaluates, looks at cuts, gives feedback, gives creative feedback. You're doing test audiences, all sorts of things that help, whittle it down and make sure you're telling a compelling story.
Has there ever been a time in any of your films that you really wish you had fought for something that the editor or the director is like, no, we're not going to put this in, but you're like, man, I really wish that was in?
Not something that sticks out. I mean, with every film, we have this saying that you're killing your darlings. We all get attached to characters, to scenes, to parts of the story. And it's an excruciating process of having to whittle down, this material and make choices about what's really serving the story, what's really driving the film forward. And oftentimes, these fantastic scenes and moments don't make it in, and you're always there's like this process of mourning throughout the film coming together, from your first string out of 4 hours, and then you get down to, say, a rough cut of 2.5 hours, and then you fine cut down to, you're kind of getting closer to time, you're getting to your 90 minutes, but with every iteration and the weeks to get between those different cuts, you're losing,
it's cutting you in essence, too, because I mean, you've developed that relationship with that character, so I mean, it hurts you as well, I would think.
So the other editor on Racing Extinction was Jason Zeldis, and he's amazing, and he's done a lot of really, really good work. He's worked on Oscar-winning films, including 20 Feet from Stardom and other things. So Jason is a great person to know as an editor.
Very good. Congratulations on releasing your newest film, Youth v. Gov. You just really premiered it this past November, and now you are sending it out through the film circuits and film festivals, which are different this year because of COVID. Could you explain what it's like to go from, okay, when the film's completed, starting off when the film is completed, not the production part, but you got it in a can, to presenting it to film festivals to where it's finally picked up for distribution? Can you, for my guys to understand how that works, what that process is like, and typically how long it takes?
Sure. So, you know, you finish the film completely done, but you're not. It's like you're in the middle of the process when you finished your film, and then you get into the distribution process. So here you have this film, and now you want people in the world to see it and to connect with it. So in a lot of independent documentaries, which the films that I've worked on in the past decade or so have all been independently funded, meaning you go out and raise the money through investments and donations and grants to make the film. Okay. And then your job is to sell the film afterward, to recoup some of the money spent on making it. And oftentimes the way that's done, and this isn't the only way it's done, but you try to premiere at a festival that has that's a recognized film festival. Sundance, Tribeca, South by Southwest, Doc NYC, San Francisco International Film Festival. There's there are a host of them, and that's when you present your film for the first time. And hopefully at your premiere festival, or then the continuing festival run afterwards, you will get recognized by distributors. So somebody who has the ability to buy your film and present it on Discovery or Netflix or National Geographic or PBS or in cinemas. So there are a bunch of different distribution companies. Some of them have their own platforms, like a Netflix or a Hulu or PBS. Mm-hmm. And then some of them become kind of like a middleman of the process, and they sell out the different rights of the film. So every film comes with a bucket or a parcel of rights. Your US and North American, we talk about in territories and different types of media and in time frames with distribution. And so you can parcel out the educational, the TV, the subscription video on demand, the transactional video on demand, the airline rights, the cruise line. There's this whole bucket of rights, and they either get sold in one big chunk in an all rights deal, or you parcel them out and you find different buyers for each one of them. Okay. In different territories around the world. So it's a long process. The film festivals.
Months.
Yeah, I mean, the films, again, I'll use Summer of Soul, which just premiered at Sundance, to great critical fanfare and audience love. It won the Audience Award and the Grand Jury Prize for Documentaries, and it was sold to Fox Searchlight, maybe, and Hulu, I think, for a combined $15 million. I mean, that's like...
That's huge.
Yeah, that's the 1 or 2 films a year out of the 300 documentaries that are produced that get that kind of launch. For most films, it's definitely a several months process of doing it. And there's a combination of like a commercial distribution deal, as well as your you can kind of do it yourself in certain ways. You can start parceling out the rights yourself, finding educational distributors, using your film for impact. So it's it's kind of a puzzle. It's trying to piece the puzzle together to accomplish the goals of the filmmaker. Is your goal to make money? Is your goal to get as many eyeballs on the film? Is it to have real impact and for the film to be able to create change in the world? So how do you look at these different goals that you have for your film, and then choose and really be smart about the right places for that film to end up and connect with different audiences? It's quite complicated. It takes a long time. We are all going for that Summer of Soul deal, you know, in our minds and our egos. we want that, but that doesn't happen most of the time.
On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being a trash can of burning poo, 10 being amazing, awesome sauce, what would you say that process is on that scale?
So the process sort of like overall,
just that whole experience of getting it distributed, you know, from
I find some of it is your bucket of poo that you said to me. That part is where you don't feel like you really have control over it. You have spent 4 years creating this film, like with Youth.gov, and as an independent film, so you don't have a commissioning network with the distribution outlet already, you know, locked in. So you've spent 4 years creating this film. It's got a sense of urgency. You want it out in the world. And then you're kind of at the mercy of what networks want, what streamers want. Is it the subject matter that's connecting with people? Do they have too many films about young people already in their slate for the year? It's so out of your hands, and it's always such a changing landscape and changing market that you're kind of like, you can't really guide it where you want it to go in a lot of cases. And then on the scale of like awesome sauce is sitting in an audience when your film is being watched by people and feeling their reactions to it, and having conversation after the film where you understand that people have really connected to what you have spent 4 years of your life making, and they're engaged in the subjects and they want to learn, and they're ready to go out of the theater and make some kind of, if it's a social issue film that drives people to want to change something in their own lives, that it is for the betterment of society, like that's amazing. Going to film festivals and celebrating the work and connecting with audiences and other filmmakers it's fantastic. It feels really good. And then
it's why you're doing this then, probably.
Yeah, it's why you're doing it. Yeah, exactly.
Olivia, thank you so much. Now we're going to enter into the portion that we call 5 quick questions. Are you
nice?
You ready to go?
I think so. I feel like I'm on Jimmy Fallon here. All right,
here we go. 5 quick questions. It's just quick responses, first thoughts, and away we go. Question number 1, the film festival, if you could only go to one film festival for the rest of your life to premiere your films, which film festival would it be and why?
I'd have to say it would be Sundance, for the reason that Sundance has so much power over how a film, the trajectory of the life of the film. A film gets a lot of attention there. It's an exciting film festival to be at, so I would pick that one.
All right. So our bucket list, we should add, go to that festival.
Yes, but I also want to say there are some amazing festivals. And if you've never been to a film festival, look locally. There are your cities and towns in Kentucky will have some incredible film festivals. And if you can just go to one and experience it, it doesn't really matter which one it is. They're really quite fun, and it's a great way to watch film.
Great. Question 2. The Cove, it won an Oscar, but you actually weren't there. What was that like to win an Oscar and not be present for it?
I don't think I understood at the time the magnitude of winning an Oscar. I did not actually win a statue myself. Only one of the producers and the director, so Fisher Stevens and Louisa Hoyas, walked home. I also had a newborn at home. I had a 3-month-old, and my priority in life was to be with this infant. So at the time, it didn't feel like I was really missing out, and then in retrospect, going back, you think, "Ooh, I really should have been in Los Angeles."
Question 3. Producers, a lot of times when you're in the heat of making a film, you have 14-hour work days. It's now hour 10 of a 14-hour workday. You know you have some more time to go. What is your go-to pick-me-up that you would go to?
I would say getting outside and going for a walk around the block and getting some fresh air, because oftentimes when the editing, you're inside a lot. So changing your environment. I think when you're out in the field, that's where you have a lot of long days too. A nice cup of coffee can keep you going.
Yes. I love the coffee. Especially when you're traveling internationally, and there's just a slight different flavor of coffee.
Yes.
Question number 4. Now you are in New Zealand and a resident Kiwi. So here is a little Kiwi trivia for you. Which of these is not correct trivia about New Zealand? So not correct. Number 1, or A, not 1. A. In 1893, New Zealand was the first country in the world to allow women to vote. B. New Zealand has the greatest diversity of penguins than anywhere other place in the world. C. New Zealand is home of Edmund Hillary, who along with Tenzing was the first to summit Mount Everest. Or D. New Zealand is home of the first bungee jump. Which of those is not correct?
I think the not correct is the penguins. I know we were the first to vote, give women the right to vote. I know Sir Edmund Hillary, this is his home country. And what was the last one?
The first bungee jump.
And I know that A.J. Hackett is the inventor of the bungee jump. And I'm pretty sure that happened on a bridge in Queenstown over the Kowloon River. Pretty sure, so I'm gonna go penguins.
Actually, penguins is correct. It's the bungee jump. Although New Zealand ran with it, it was not. And the bungee jump is like lore. Like you go to New Zealand if you're going to do a bungee jump, but they actually just missed it. So yes.
Oh, so who was the first country to do the bungee jump?
England had the first bungee jump.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I was really stuck on that penguin because I know we have a lot of different penguins here, but I was
there's more diversity of penguins in New Zealand than anywhere in the world.
And they're so cute.
I would imagine so. Imagine so. All right.
Those are awesome questions, Chad. That's great.
Final question, 5th quick question is this. Now that you know what we're doing, who would you like to invite to our class to continue this conversation?
I would like to invite Lyman Smith, who is a documentary editor. He and I have worked on several films together. He's a close friend. We've become friends through our work. And I think it would just be fascinating for you guys to hear about the editing process and one of the other skills and crafts that go into filmmaking.
Looking forward to that conversation. Thank you for making that happen.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure.
Olivia Ahnemann, you have finished 5 quick questions as well as this conversation. Thank you so much for being a part of our class. We really appreciate it.
It's awesome. What a fun conversation to have. Thank you for making it really great. And I hope your class enjoys all of this. And if there are budding filmmakers out there, like to dig in and go for it.
Thank you, Olivia, for that very fun and enlightening conversation with us. I really do appreciate it and look forward to seeing more of your great, inspiring work. Guys, as you can see, filmmakers can make a difference in the world. And you guys, no matter what you do in your industry, realize with the right effort, you too can make a difference. All right, remain awesome, be nice, stay safe. See you later, guys. Have a good one.